After the summer break, the club game for September is the Battle of Auldearn in 1645. We'll be using Bloody Kingdom rules by Steve Daines. This battle was fought between the Royalist Irish and Highland Scots against the Scottish Covenanters, and it was part of the Three Kingdoms Wars, which was part of the English Civil War. Here we see the Royalist troops that are in the village. They've been awakened by the advance of the Scottish Covenanters. We see a local crofter here observing the advance of the Scottish Covenanter troops, whose plan is to push up this main road as quickly as possible, outflank the village on the right, and then hopefully push on through the main village as quickly as possible, catching the Royalist infantry unawares whilst they're still being mustered. Some of the available Royalist infantry is pushed out of the village into the fields to try and hold up the Scottish Covenanter advance. The terrain around the village is quite difficult, so this would limit the amount of space that the Scottish Covenanters have to deploy. So it's quite a good tactic to begin with. We see the Scottish Covenanter cavalry pushing up on the right flank in the attempt to get around the side of the village, whilst the infantry pushes up and tries to counter the Royalist infantry. Here we see a little rule card that's been played. These are a feature of the Bloody Kingdom rules, which are played on individual units at any point during the game, and usually have quite nasty effects on them, but which are quite entertaining though. Royalist cavalry successfully holding up the Scottish Covenanter dragoons and lancers, and actually managing to break one of the Scottish Covenanter cavalry units, which then threatens the flank of the column. Here we see the Scottish Covenanters continuing to push up in an attempt to deploy in the fields outside the village, in the attempt to get an assault underway. It's quite a considerable column of troops that to get manoeuvred, and it's going to take quite a while to get them deployed and into position. But meanwhile, the Scottish Covenanters pushing up as quickly as they can, whilst the Commissioner from Edinburgh suddenly arrives on the scene just to keep a check on what's going on. And a moody shot of some moody Scots moving up as the column continues to advance to get deployed. Royalist troops that pushed out from the village are now beginning to take quite a lot of casualties and are being ground back. And on the right flank, the Scottish Covenanters slowly beginning to outflank the village. But as they push up, they uncover some more Royalist infantry that are deployed on the hill just outside of the village. And they also fortunately find a nasty little frame gun that's deployed on the edge of the village. Although there were no artillery pieces in the battle, historically, we seem to have introduced one, which I think is more of a case of it's in the figure collection, so we're going to use it. Small Royalist troops are now beginning to muster in the village and start their advance into position to try and hold up the Scottish Covenanters. And here we see the Royalist camp beginning to rouse, and the commander getting himself up to the front line. But the Scottish Covenanters begin to get their position consolidated and start to attack the village. But unfortunately for them, just as they try to sort the village, a rather large ditch is uncovered, which halts their advance for a little bit longer. The unit cards that you see dotted around the table throughout the game are part of the Wargamer Ada Comp game system, which we're beginning to introduce and hopefully see a bit more of over the next couple of games. Scottish Covenanters have now caused quite a lot of casualties on the Royalist forces, who are beginning to fall back. So the victory goes to the Scottish Covenanters just by the amount of casualties that they've created.